like Grant Shapps, chairman of the Conservative Party, MP for Welwyn Hatfield as well. You can put your calls to him ahead of tomorrow's European and local elections right now. 0845 6060 973 is the number to call to get in touch. Coming up a little bit later also, we're going to talk about the Made in Chelsea star Jamie Laing. He was arrested after he refused to stop talking loudly on his mobile phone in the quiet carriage of the train. How do you tackle antisocial behaviour? It's called low level, but it's very, very irritating. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. So indeed, thank you very much for joining us, and indeed to Grant Shapps, who joins me in the studio right now.
Busily tweeting the fact, because I know that you're on a webcam, so I was
You are, yes, you are. You are on camera right at this current moment. I suppose the first question I have to ask you is, do you know who the Tory leader of Swindon Council is, Grant?
No, I knew you were going to ask that, and I still didn't look it up, but he's a great guy. The thing is, we have so many councillors across the country that it's hard to keep track.
This, of course, is in the wake of Ed Miliband, the Labour leader, being asked about the Labour leader of the Labour group on Swindon Council when he was actually on a visit to Swindon.
But and thought that he was actually there, and then thought that he was leading the council. Of course, that's one of the key councils who've been doing a lot of good work. Conservative controlled councils been doing a lot of good work, and they and that's actually one of the things in these elections people are going to get a choice about is, do you want to vote for a council who continuously freeze and hold down your council tax? And if so, then all the figures show Conservative councils are much more likely to do that. So that's the big battle in Swindon.
You've had quite a lot of battles with the Tory councils who haven't done what you've asked, though, haven't you?
Look, people make their own decisions on a local basis, but I do think that in these difficult times that we've gone through, since the government's been making money available to freeze council tax, it does rather make sense when local councils actually accept that money on behalf of local people.
Your colleague, Eric Pickles, the local government secretary, he's not been able to even convince local councils to empty the bins as often as local people want. So why on earth do you think you've got that power?
Well, look, first of all, it is true that Conservative councils cost you less. If you look at the Band D level of council tax, something must be working here, because we're £86 cheaper than if you live in a Labour council.
Isn't that because you generally have generally have seats which you have boroughs where there's less?
Let's just be clear. At Band D, so I'm taking a specific band, the middle band. So that's a fair comparison across the board. £86 cheaper than Labour councils, £120 plus cheaper than a Lib Dem council average Band D. So one very good reason to vote Conservative tomorrow is that you get, on average, a lower council tax, because Conservatives just look after your money better. And sorry, I didn't really answer your point, which is councils, of course, have the right and the freedom to decide based on local factors, and people are able to make those decisions about how the bin collections work. My local council came up with a system which saved £420,000 a year. That's Welwyn Hatfield in Hertfordshire. Many LBC listeners there. But at the same time, improve the service because we've got more recycling. That's a local decision to make.
OK, a lot of people, of course, completely unaware what we're talking about, which was the local elections. The polling stations open at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. If you've got a postal vote like myself, you can already have voted. Also got the European elections tomorrow. 38% of voters, according to a poll today, are completely unaware that there is an election tomorrow. It's just a depressing figure for I think for many of us. Is that a failure of politicians, a failure of the media, or a failure of those individual voters not to take any interest in public life?
Well, look, first of all, I mean, there's that old saying, isn't there? It doesn't matter who you vote for, the council always wins, which is really to say that sometimes in councils, the officers, the officials, the bureaucrats, the pen pushers, they'll get on with doing things no matter what. But the really well-run councils, I'm thinking about like Hammersmith and Fulham in London, Westminster, places like that, where you get a really well-run council, you find that actually it really makes a difference to your daily lives. And, some councils are actually cutting council tax and improving the services. And they're doing that by sharing services with the neighbouring authorities, cutting their costs. So actually it does matter. And when it comes to the European elections, this is the first opportunity to vote since we had the whole Euro crisis. Again, this is a seminal moment. Now, I accept that European elections don't set the world on fire. But for anyone who cares about having an in-out referendum on a reformed relationship with Europe, voting Labour and Lib Dem, that takes you further in. They love everything that comes out of Europe. Voting UKIP, they say they want change, but really they're just shouting from the sidelines, admitting that they can't make change happen. only by voting Conservative tomorrow in those Euro elections do you actually back up the case to get an in-out referendum, Conservatives making that happen.
Who's your MEP?
Well, I have 7 MEPs because MEPs are voted in by region. So there's not a single person. Geoffrey Van Orden's a very good one in my area. He tends to represent my area more than others.
Do you think that most voters and most people listening right now to LBC genuinely think that a vote tomorrow, particularly in the European elections, bearing in mind people have 2 ballot papers to fill in, one for European, one for local, that a vote in the European elections will make any difference whatsoever to what happens in the European Parliament or at the European Commission or in the European Union generally?
Well, I do think it's important to have people representing us in Europe who share the kind of mainstream British view. And I would describe the mainstream British view as people who think we went into Europe because we want to trade, we want to have that free market, but we didn't sign up for a Europe where all of the different pernickety laws are coming from Brussels rather than being decided in this country. That is a mainstream view. It also happens to be a Conservative view, and only Conservatives have got a plan to deliver that by having a referendum by 2017.
You've been in power since 2010.
We have, sadly. We've been in coalition.
No, but Grant, I cannot, as a political journalist, I've heard for so many years from Conservatives saying, we don't like all these laws, we can't do anything about that because that's Europe and we can't change that. 4 years in, and you're not talking about having a referendum until 2017, only if you have a majority Conservative government. Well, it comes a point when the talk is cheap.
Hold on, just to be clear, I voted to have that referendum date set, as has every Conservative MP. We got that through the House of Commons. It went to the House of Lords, where the Lib Dems and Labour voted against the referendum date being set for 2017. And, by the way, one of the UKIP have a couple of representatives in there. They didn't bother to support it either. So, actually, they talk about wanting to give people a choice and don't. We did not win the last election with a sufficient majority, as you know, because we're in a coalition, to force it through. But, boy, have we tried. We put that legislation in front of the House and we fought for it to go through. But it's not true that we haven't been achieving things in Europe over the last 4 years in the British interest. I can name them straight off the bat. We got us out of a multi-billion-pound bailout that Labour signed us up to in the last few days. We would have been rescuing euro currency countries throughout Europe. Cameron got us out of that. He vetoed a Euro treaty that wasn't in Britain's best interests. We made sure we passed a law that says no more powers go to Europe in referendums without the British people getting in treaties, without the British people getting a referendum. Most importantly, Cameron went to Europe and said, this budget has got out of control and we're not going to pay any more into it. People said, you can't do that, you'll never cut it. We did. We cut the European budget. It saved 8.2 billion over the next few years to this country. So we have been achieving things. And yes, we want that referendum, and you'll only get it by voting Conservative.
OK, let's go to the phone lines. 0845 6060 973. Stephen gets the first question. He's in Croydon. Hello, Stephen.
Hello.
Hello there. By the way, were you at that UKIP carnival yesterday?
No, I didn't go.
I don't think anyone did, but the journalist. Stephen, what do you want to ask Grant Shapps?
I just want to ask him, is David Cameron actually being truthful this time about the referendum, or is he just blowing smoke?
Absolutely truthful about it. In fact, to such an extent, he said he would not be the Prime Minister in a government after the next election unless we have that guarantee of the referendum. Remember, I just said we've been voting. Conservatives have been voting for that referendum in the Commons, and the other parties have been blocking it. And don't fall for the old UKIP line that says, Conservatives have promised this all before. No, we said that the Lisbon Treaty should be subject to a referendum, and had it not been passed...
No, you didn't.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did say.
David Cameron didn't.
No,
David
he
Cameron
did.
Said, no, he didn't. He said that if he became Prime Minister, he would offer us a ironclad referendum, which he didn't do.
No, can I just explain? Because it's not...
Stephen, let Grant come back.
Stephen, let me just explain, because it's actually factually untrue what you're saying, and a lot of people believe it, so I don't blame you, but it's untrue. Let me just explain. We had the Lisbon Treaty that Labour had signed us up to. We said there should be a referendum on that treaty. That referendum ended up getting passed by the House of Commons and Parliament before the election. And so a year earlier, before the general election, we said, well, you can't have a referendum on something that's already happened. That's not possible. So what we will do is fight to bring back powers during the next Parliament if we are elected, which we did, and have brought back powers that I just described and trimmed the budget and the rest of it. And we also said that actually, if we weren't satisfied, which we're not, that at the next election, we would reserve the right to say that we should have a referendum. That was the exact position, and I can prove it very easily. Our manifesto is available online from the last election.
Okay.
You can look up the fact that there was no such pledge.
Let's go to Graham, who's in Manchester. Hi, Graham.
Hi, I'd just like to ask Mr. Shapps a simple question, really. How with a clear conscience, every time I see Mr. Cameron being asked about what the best achievements the Conservatives have made in 4 years, the first thing he always says is cutting welfare. Now, how can we trumpet or celebrate the further disadvantaging of the most disadvantaged with such glee?
Okay.
How can you celebrate that?
Well,
that disadvantage?
First of all, what he says is not cutting welfare, but making work pay in this country. So all the thousands of listeners to LBC who are out there working, probably listening as they go about their work, know that they will be better off on average than a family on benefits. And I think that's absolutely right. And it actually secures huge support. Over 8 out of 10 people agree you should be better off if you're in work. However, the biggest achievement alongside that welfare reform is clearly the fact we have 1.5 million more people in work than at the last election. And that has been a massive achievement, in part brought about by making sure that work does always pay in this country.
OK, thank you very much to you, Graham, for that. We're going to go to an update on the traffic and travel in just a few minutes. To get your calls in 0845 6060 973 to the Tory Party Chairman, Grant Shapps, whether it's about your local election candidates, whether it's about the European candidates standing in your area. Tomorrow is the election day, although 38% of voters aren't aware of that. I want to hear from you. 0845 6060 973. Don't forget, there is a full list of candidates for the European elections on our website, lbc.co.uk. And UKIP's Suzanne Evans will be joining Ian Dale from 7 o'clock tonight as well. This is LBC, and the time is 3:15.
I'm Jo-Louise Knight in the LBC Travel Centre, and a couple of problems on the M25 this afternoon. Firstly, on the Surrey stretch heading anti-clockwise, a lorry's broken down between Godstone at Junction 6 and Clackett Lane services. It's blocking the inside lane, although traffic doesn't seem too bad as you make your way towards it. On the Hertfordshire stretch, got another broken down lorry. This one's clockwise at Junction 24 for Potters Bar, but once again, a similar picture, not really affecting traffic just yet. And in North East London and Ponders End, Hertford Road High Street is queuing northbound towards roadworks at Southbury Road, the back of the queue reaching Nightingale Road. Problems continue in Sevenoaks in Kent after a vehicle hit the bridge. The A25 is shut in both directions at London Road. In Sheffield in South Yorkshire, an accident shut Ridgeway Road going north at Corker Road. And on the M62 in West Yorkshire, a broken down lorry is blocking one lane heading west on the M62 before Milne Row at Junction 21. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in half an hour.
This is LBC. Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
Weekday afternoons from 4.
We are in the company of Harriet Harman, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party.
Do you think the comments that Nigel Farage made is racist?
What his comments are is xenophobic. It's the easiest thing to divide everybody from each other. It's all divide and rule.
He's also dividing Ed Miliband and David Lammy, because David Lammy thinks it is racist.
Ian Dale at Drive on LBC.
With the RAC, motorists, we salute you.
The bigger your company gets, the less personal everything seems. It's just business, nothing personal, as they say. But why? Why shouldn't business be more personal? After all, success means being successful with people. So if your accountants no longer provide the time and dedication you deserve, try something a little more personal. Try Barnes Rofe and experience the difference. Visit barnesrofe.com/radio. They really are clever accountants for business.
Get on the property ladder with Galliard Homes' unbeatable specification. Superb value apartments in great locations, either in or with easy access to central London. Call 020 7620 1500. That's 020 7620 1500. Or log on to galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com.
If you're looking for a more secure way to let a London property, talk to Aldermartin Baines & Cuthbert. We instruct an insurance company to vet our tenants to the same standards as someone applying for a mortgage. Plus, our free rent guarantee gives you a full year's protection against late or non-payment. We won't take risks with your property. So call Aldermartin Baines & Cuthbert on 0800 888 6688. That's 0800 888 6688. Or visit abc-estates.com.
A year ago, my left knee completely packed up and I had to retire from the police service. The pain was so bad I was taking painkillers to get me through the night. But since starting Appos therapy, I now go to the gym every day and do 45 minutes on a spin bike. And now, no pain and no painkillers.
If, like Steve, you're suffering the agony of knee pain and looking for lasting relief, call Appos Therapy for a free assessment. Appos Therapy is a non-surgical, non-drug and clinically proven treatment for worn, damaged and arthritic knees. With thousands of patients successfully treated, call Appos Therapy for your free assessment on 0800 909 8009 or visit appostherapy.co.uk. Results may vary.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
The tragedy of a 20-year-old man committing suicide, an unemployed gardener desperate for work, taking his life after he was left demoralised by hours of form filling at his local job centre.
I think this is an incredibly sad case, and I think it really highlights the link between unemployment and mental illness.
Prince's controversial verdict on Russian leader's invasion of Ukraine. He's likened Vladimir Putin to Adolf Hitler. So, Tony, what level of sympathy do you have for Charles here?
Well, I feel rather sorry for him, actually. I mean, this was obviously a private comment in a quite emotionally moving situation with a Holocaust survivor.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton. Refreshingly different and surprisingly affordable hotels.
I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is LBC Leading Britain's Conversation. I'm live in the studio with Grant Shapps, chairman of the Conservative Party, ahead of tomorrow's European and local elections. Lots of calls coming in, a few questions I want to get to as well. David Davis, the former Shadow Home Secretary, Grant, has said today that the Tory constant attacks on UKIP as being racist are actually doing, no job at all. They're doing the opposite of the job they want to do. They're driving more voters to UKIP. He says the only way to fight UKIP is to occupy their ground. Is he right? Have you made a horrible mistake by branding them as racist?
I don't think we've actually, and people I used to come on these programmes, people used to say, why don't you mention their name? You sort of almost, one way round or the other. They are a party who have simply get the same scrutiny that the rest of us are getting, perhaps only latterly in their case. And it's no good sort of complaining that just because you get the same scrutiny as the other political parties, you're somehow being victimised. I don't really... I think my most important job is to explain to people what Conservatives should be fighting for and what we are fighting for, which is to get the best deal in Europe and then put that to an in-out referendum. Now, that's our policy. Our policy isn't changing or moving. We want that 2017 referendum, as I've discussed with your other callers, and it will stay that way, as will our insistence we have a sensible, controlled immigration system, a welfare system that works. Our views are the mainstream views of the British public, and we have the mechanism to deliver on those things, which is more that can be said for parties that stand at the sidelines and shout about those things, admitting at the same time they can't actually deliver.
Talking of mainstream views, was Prince Charles right to liken President Putin to Hitler?
Well, look, he said this in a sort of private comment, which was...
A private comment to a complete stranger.
OK, but a stranger who had escaped Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. So, in context, to somebody who wasn't quite sure whether what she repeated back was the exact words rather than the sentiment. And I think, I think it's great that we've got royals who have opinions. They are able to have personal opinions. I don't think we should strip them of those things. In truth, this whole situation with Russia, Ukraine, the Crimea, it is very serious. It's not acceptable to have Russia, Putin, go into a country against all the international norms.
But that's the job of
agreements.
politicians. Prince Charles is, as the next monarch, is going to have to be above politics. He's going to have to meet President Putin only next month at a major event. It's not appropriate for him to have profess personal opinions to complete strangers, is it?
I don't buy that at all. As I say, he was meeting somebody who herself had escaped from the world's worst atrocity. I personally am very comfortable with the idea that we have a royal family, that individuals will have their own thoughts, that actually, because the actual power, democracy, if you like, is contained within Parliament and politicians and what have you, it doesn't change anything.
Have you received one of his handwritten letters?
I wouldn't want to go into
is that a yes?
Details.
So you've received one of his handwritten letters?
Well, I just say, look, if you have a system which is a constitutional monarchy, then you expect the monarch to have some communication with his or her ministers. The Queen does that at the moment. There's no secret that she meets weekly with the Prime Minister. It's no secret that on occasion ministers meet with either the monarch or with Prince Charles, who increasingly is taking over, some of those responsibilities at least. None of this is a mystery or a surprise. And as we know, in the end, it's for politicians to make decisions, for the public to elect them. But we have a very popular and I think very good monarchy in this country, and I think we're strengthened greatly for it.
Has anything that Prince Charles has ever written to you ever influenced any policy?
As I say, I don't want to go into sort of private
yes or no
discussions, but only only in as much as one thing I can say, be absolutely clear about. He has never in any way inappropriately lobbied me about anything. You have a discussion, and a discussion is a discussion. It's not lobbying.
Keith's in Shoreditch. Hi, Keith.
Hello, Julia.
Hello. What do you want to ask, Grant?
Hello, Mr. Shapps. I was just wondering if you're worried about the view that most young people feel that your tenure as housing minister has been a failure, because most young people can't get on the housing ladder till they're 37. Certainly can't even dream about it in London, and when they do get a mortgage, it's a 40-year mortgage. We still regard the housing ladder with a 40-year mortgage around your neck. That's no ladder, that's an anchor. And when interest rates start going up, it will pretty much be a housing snake.
Well, the average age of a first-time buyer right at the outset when I became housing minister was actually 37. Didn't become it whilst it's slightly fallen in the meantime. But I would say that I think that it's not acceptable for people of older generations to look at this generation and say, well, I was able to get a house, but this generation can't. And that's why when people criticise things like the help we brought in, Help to Buy being a very good example, and the reinvigorated schemes related to being able to purchase your council house, all of those things, I think that we have done more to help young buyers in a difficult economy than certainly any time before. Because you know what? Older people were able to buy houses with a 5 or 10% deposit, and that had completely disappeared. We've made that come back, and it means that people do at least have a chance of getting a foot on the housing ladder. So overall, I'm proud that we're on the side of aspirational, hard-working young people who want to get their first foot on the housing ladder, get their first apprentice, get their first car. Mm-hmm. That's what the Conservative Party is all about.
Keith, excuse me, I'm going to move on to get another few more calls in. Vivian's in Twickenham. Hi, Vivian. What do you want to ask Grant?
Hello there. I just wanted 2 points on what Mr. Shapps said about being in work is better than benefits. My daughter couldn't work for a long time because she had a child with a disability. Mm. She eventually got a job, signed off from JAS, which meant that she had no money for a month, because the minute you sign off, you get nothing, and you wait a month for your wages. Since then, she's exactly £1 better off.
So, first of all...
Well, you're saying that you're better off in work than you are on benefit.
Well, look, I don't know your daughter's individual circumstances, but I do believe that it is right that we support people, actually like your daughter, who are the most vulnerable people, you might say, in situations where they need to get that extra bit of support. And one of the things we've tried to do with the benefits system, in particular by introducing universal credit, which is a process introducing it. It's not a single thing that changes on one day. So it may be that your daughter's not fully benefiting from it yet. I don't know without knowing all the details. But one of the things the universal credit does is makes the change from going in and out of work much more seamless. So you don't end up by only being £1 better off, or actually sometimes in the past being worse off when you start working. So every sympathy with what you're saying. I don't know the details, but absolutely our goal is to help people exactly in the position of your daughter.
But I've spoken to so many people and been to visit a food bank myself, Grant, where people who, again, doing the right thing, they're looking for work, they get into work, and then exactly the same situation as Vivian's daughter was in, that they're honest, they say, look, I've got a job, they get not a single penny, despite the fact they've got bills for the next month, but they don't get a paycheck for the next month. Surely there must be a system that can help people in that position. And the fact that the ministers don't realise this is going on and don't solve it is a bit of an indictment.
Well, hold on. One thing we absolutely realise is that the system has and had massive problems. Ian Duncan-Smith, whatever you think of our welfare reforms, nobody can accuse that guy of not going around and finding out what the situation really was
You've had
in
4
advance.
years.
Well, hold on. the benefit system that you talk about isn't one single payment, or at least wasn't one single payment. It's multiple different benefits, all of which interact at different levels, whether you work 16 hours.
No, but these are the payments that stop like that the moment you get a job.
This is the point I'm trying to make. What we're doing with the universal credit, via Ian Duncan Smith's extraordinary leadership in this area, is to say it doesn't make sense. Exactly, I'm agreeing exactly with your point and the point of the caller. It doesn't make sense to effectively, from pay terms, fall off a cliff edge that moment that you take on another hour's work, for example. And that is why we're rolling most of the benefit payments into the single universal credit to make it a smooth line so you can get back into work when those things happen.
OK, let's squeeze one last call in. Levi's in Camden. Have to make it quick, I'm afraid, Levi, but what's your question to Grant Shapps?
Yeah, I disagree with that. Your Tory minister, whatever he is, saying...
He's the chairman of the Conservative Party.
And a Tory minister, I am. You can carry on.
OK, there's a million people using food banks. Your economy is not working. Maybe for your super rich friends in the bank, it's working. You cut the taxes for them. We know that Tories love helping their rich friends in the city, their donors, but there's a million people using food banks. It's not working. I mean, the sanctions is savage. I know your right-wing media, it plays well to them, cutting benefits, but you're hurting people out there.
Right.
And you're Tory.
Okay. Levi, you've got to let him come back because it's almost the bottom of the hour.
I get your point, but the one thing which hurts people more than anything else is being unemployed. There are 1.5 million more people in work, more people working in this country than ever before, and unemployment under every Labour government has always been higher when they've left office than when they came in. That is cruel, that is unfair, and this Conservative-led government is sorting that out and helping people get back on their feet as the economy recovers.
Just some breaking news I want to put to you, Grant. 2 prisoners from Cheshire have now escaped from an open prison. This is the 4th time prisoners have escaped from low-category prisons in the last fortnight. What on earth are you doing about this?
Well, first of all, we're going to tag people so that when they go into these open prisons, a necessary part perhaps of their release programme, because you don't want to release people without testing them in the open prisons. But when that happens, they're going to be wearing tags in future. Secondly, we're going to stop allowing people to go into those open prison situations if they've absconded before. It's ridiculous that they're still able to do that, and several other reforms along the way.
Grant Shapps, Chairman of the Conservative Party, thank you very much for joining us, taking these calls. Don't forget, there's a full list of candidates for the European elections on our website, lbc.co.uk, and UKIP's Suzanne Evans will be joining Ian Dale from 7 o'clock tonight. Coming up after news, your reaction to this phone-in. Also, we're going to talk about the Made in Chelsea star, Jamie Lang. He was arrested after he refused to stop using his mobile phone in the quiet carriage of a train. What can we do about that kind of low-level antisocial behaviour? I'll tell you what I do if you tell me what you do. 08456 606 973 is the number to call. LBC News Time now. It's 3:31. And here with the latest headlines, it's Simon Conway.
Another 2 prisoners have gone on the run after absconding from an open prison. Cheshire police say the pair have gone missing from Thorn.